The race against time begins with the strident acceleration of a black convertible, cutting through the night breeze on an isolated highway. Behind the wheel is Jake Carter, a man with a dark and determined expression, an ex-military man whose secrets seem as dangerous as the demons that haunt him. In the passenger seat is his partner, Sarah Johnson, an ambitious and fearless lawyer whose life was turned upside down by a case that took on personal and deadly proportions. In the back seat, sleeping innocently under a blue blanket, is little Danny, Sarah's 4-year-old son, whose only concern should be which toy to choose when he wakes up. But tonight, his fate is inexorably linked to Jake's accelerator. The story briefly rewinds to reveal the reason for this desperate escape: an accidental discovery of deep corruption involving a powerful drug cartel and corrupt politicians. Information Sarah found hidden in a client's confidential documents. Jake, with his special forces background, knew their only chance of survival was to escape before the cartel caught up with him. As the convertible speeds down the highway, the tension intensifies. Jake and Sarah exchange looks filled with fear and determination, knowing that each kilometer covered is as much a step closer to salvation as it is to danger. The camera captures the speedometer display rising, while flashbacks intersperse scenes of the two searching files, listening to threats over the phone, and making the terrible decision to run away to protect little Danny. Suddenly, a series of cars appears on the horizon, headlights off, moving quickly in pursuit formation. Jake presses the gas harder, adrenaline mixing with stinging fear. Sarah looks back, her face pale in the moonlight, her eyes fixed on the approaching figure. The chase becomes a chaotic symphony of speed and lights, with Jake making risky maneuvers to avoid the vehicles trying to intercept them. Sarah holds Danny closer, whispering promises that everything will be okay, her voice shaking with every lurch of the car. In a dramatic twist, Jake attempts a daring maneuver to escape through an unmapped exit. The car skids on the gravel at the side of the road. Loss of control is imminent. The convertible rocks violently over the edge of a ravine, and then, in a moment of absolute horror, the back of the car rises up, launching him into the air. In the air, time seems to freeze. Danny, released from his harness, is thrown out of the car, a small body floating in a limbo of metal and fear. On the ground, Jake and Sarah scream in unison, a scream that is both despair and defiance, as Danny's fate hangs in a terrible balance. Dear followers, get ready to embark on a breathtaking journey, full of twists and turns and emotions. Don't forget to leave your comments, give a like if you liked the video, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any moment of this incredible adventure. Are you ready to find out where this race against time will take our heroes? Let's find out together. The inevitable accident plunges you into the beating heart of terror as the black convertible, now a runaway beast in the night, roars across the deserted highway. Jake, with his hands firmly on the steering wheel, feels the cold sweat mix with the adrenaline that runs through his veins. The road, normally a mere path, now turns into a nightmarish stage. As the car accelerates, the tension builds like a dark symphony. The engine emits an almost human howl, reflecting the growing panic inside the vehicle. Sarah, next to Jake, grips the seat, her wide eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. In the back seat, little Danny, awakened by the chaos, begins to cry, his voice lost in the roar of the engine. Suddenly, without warning, a sharp bend reveals itself ahead, lit only by treacherous moonlight. Jake turns the steering wheel, but it's too late. The car, as if possessed by an evil force, slides off the track. The world spins in a cacophony of screams and twisted metal. The convertible, now an out-of-control entity, encounters the side embankment and, in a moment of absolute horror, ramps high into the air. Gravity is lost as they float in a temporal void, the car spinning in slow motion. Glass shatters around them like deadly diamonds in the air, reflecting the moonlight into shattering fragments of life. The sound of metal against earth echoes like thunder, a prelude to the devastating impact. When the convertible hits the ground, The impact is brutal, a collision that reverberates through every fiber of the car and its occupants. Jake and Sarah are shaken violently, trapped in a merry-go-round of destruction as the car rolls over several times, ripping chunks of asphalt off and sending sparks flying in a macabre dance with the night. Inside the car, the chaos is palpable. Muffled screams, the acrid smell of gasoline and smoke, and the incessant sound of metal being ripped apart. Sarah, between sobs and prayers, tries to reach Danny, but the forces of physics are relentless. The boy, in a moment of unspeakable terror, is ejected from the vehicle, launched into the air like a fallen angel, as the air taxi appears unexpectedly, an unwitting spectator and perhaps savior in this theater of destruction. This is not just the end of Journey, but the beginning of a nightmare that unfolds with a ferocity that defies comprehension. This is the inevitable accident, an event that will turn every next second into a desperate fight for survival, for understanding, and ultimately for redemption. The unexpected rescue begins at the exact moment that 4-year-old Danny's world turns into a whirlwind of chaos and fear. Thrown from the back seat during the horrific accident, his small body is catapulted through space, a moment of innocence brutally interrupted by the violence of fate. Above the scene of destruction, an air taxi, commanded by veteran pilot Mike Henderson, tears through the sky on a flight path that should be routine. The night is clear, and the city below shines with 1,000 lights, oblivious to the drama unfolding on the deserted highway. However, seasoned Mike, whose eyes have seen more than a share of tragedies, catches a glimpse of something terribly wrong. A vehicle spiraling toward destruction and a small human object, strangely suspended in the air. Mike doesn't hesitate. With adrenaline pumping through his veins, he quickly radios in the emergency, his voice a mix of command and concern. He lowers the altitude, adjusting the controls with hands that shake slightly, not from fear, but from intense focus. It's a maneuver he's never tried outside of hypothetical training scenarios, an aerial rescue of a child in mid-flight. On the ground, the convertible is a twisted mass of metal, and its occupants, Jake and Sarah, struggle with their seat belts, panic, and physical pain. Sarah, in particular, screams Danny's name, her mother's heart torn by the sharpest of pains, the possibility of losing a child. Jake, bleeding and desperate, tries to calm her, but his eyes are also fixed on the sky, searching for any sign of hope. Danny, meanwhile, appears to float in a bubble of distorted time, his face a mask of confusion and fear. He cries, a sound that is almost drowned out by the roar of the engines and the wind whistling around him. It's a miracle that he's still conscious, a testament to the innocent resilience that only children possess. Mike approaches the air taxi with surgical precision. He knows he only has seconds to act. Lowering the aircraft until it is dangerously close to the ground, he opens the side door, the howling wind rushing in like a hungry monster. With one hand on the controller and the other extended outwards, he aims Danny's trajectory. It's a shot in the dark, a bet with the highest of stakes. Danny and Mike's eyes meet. A brief moment that seems to last forever, a silent bond forged at the confluence of extreme danger and desperate courage. With gravity-defying dexterity, Mike manages to grab Danny's arm, pulling him into the air taxi. The boy is safe against all odds, his cry now a sob of relief. On the ground, Sarah watches the scene unfold, her prayers answered in a way she could never have imagined. She falls to her knees on the cold asphalt, her hands raised in gratitude to the sky. As Jake hugs her, his own eyes moist with tears mixed with relief and pain. As the air taxi pulls away, carrying Danny to safety, the adrenaline begins to wane, and the reality of what happened, the magnitude of the disaster and the miracle, begins to set in for everyone involved. Mike, now with Danny safe by his side, looks back at the scene of the accident, knowing that tonight will be one he will never forget, a reminder of the weight of the responsibilities he carries and the incalculable value of a life saved at the last possible second. The scenario, the accident, turns into a dark stage of human emotions, where each character is confronted with their own insecurities, remorse, and despair. The air still vibrates with the echo of the disaster, and the highway, now lit by the flashing lights of emergency services, reveals the deep emotional scars left by the event. Jake, still trapped in the wreckage of the convertible, feels the crushing weight of guilt constricting his chest. He had been the driver, the protector, the one who was supposed to ensure the safety of Sarah and little Danny. Now, immobilized, with his gaze fixed on the dented roof of the car, his mind is flooded by a whirlwind of what if. What if he had ignored the urgent phone call? What if he had chosen another route? What if he had never allowed Danny to travel with him? Every thought is a blow, every breath a reminder of failure. Tears stream down his face, not just from the physical pain, but from the pain of knowing that his decision put his nephew in mortal danger. Beside him, Sarah, although relieved for her son's safety, shares his gnawing guilt. As a lawyer, she has always fought to do what is right, but in that moment, she questions all the choices that led her there. His relief is tinged with remorse, knowing that it was his involvement in the case that put his family in the crosshairs of danger. His gaze is lost between the onlookers and the rescuers, searching in vain for a sign that this is all just a nightmare from which he will soon wake up. Among spectators, the trauma spreads like a wave. People who stop to help now carry the weight of images they won't be able to forget. A wrecked car, a boy being rescued midair, the desperate sound of a mother screaming for her son. A young couple who witnessed the accident while returning from a trip embrace on the side of the road, the shock making them promise each other never to take freedom and life for granted again. But it is the anguish of family members, those who receive news of the accident, that perhaps cuts deeper. The phone rings in a quiet house, where Danny's grandmother, who had taken care of him that morning, answers with a joy that quickly turns to terror. Her hands shake as she tries to make sense of the broken words on the other end of the line. The ground seems to slip away from beneath your feet, and the world, once safe and stable, now teeters dangerously. She feels helpless, her faith tested to the utmost as she kneels and prays, not just for her family's physical recovery, but for the healing of the invisible wounds this day left on their souls. Consequences and Guilt is not just an account of a tragic event, but a profound introspection into the impact of our choices, into the burden of responsibility, and into how, even in the darkest circumstances, the human spirit struggles to find some light, some path to redemption and forgiveness, both for ourselves and for others. The suspense intensifies when Detective James Alden enters the scene. With a career marked by solving complex cases, James sees the accident scenario not as an isolated tragedy, but as an enigma that calls for unraveling. Their trained eyes quickly pick up on inconsistencies that raise more questions than answers. As the investigation progresses, James revisits the crash site. Walking slowly along the highway, he observes skid marks that seem to tell a story of despair and struggle. The convertible is beyond recognition, a twisted jumble of metal and secrets. Every piece of the car is meticulously scrutinized, every piece of evidence a potential piece in a larger, darker puzzle. Early reports suggest a common loss of control, but to James, the patterns of damage to the vehicle indicate something more sinister. The marks on the asphalt don't line up with a simple loss of control. He suspects possible sabotage, and this hypothesis leads him to investigate deeper into the past of Jake and Sarah, the car's occupants. Conversations with Sarah reveal the tension of her profession. She confesses that she was working on a highly sensitive case, involving powerful figures with a lot to lose. His eyes, although marked by sadness, shine with an iron resolve when he speaks of the danger his discovery represented. The connection between the accident and his work becomes a line of inquiry that James pursues with renewed vigor. Interviews with Sarah's colleagues and rivals at the law firm add layers of intrigue. Rumors of veiled threats and strange interest from questionable customers are beginning to surface. Each statement is confirmation that Sarah was treading dangerous ground, and that her fear of retaliation was justified. At the same time, James investigates the route the convertible took on the night of the accident. Security cameras along the highway captured vehicles following the convertible suspiciously. Blurred images show a chase that appears orchestrated, with cars keeping a calculated distance, like predators waiting for the right moment to attack. The discovery that the convertible's braking system showed signs of tampering is the turning point. This confirms the sabotage theory and points to an assassination attempt disguised as an accident. James now finds himself in a race against time, trying to put the puzzle together before those responsible realize he is on his trail. As the tension grows, James' personal life begins to suffer. Sleepless nights and obsession with the case put his relationship with his family at risk. His worried wife begs him to stay away from the case, fearing that his determination could make him the next target. But the impulse to discover the truth is stronger. James, although shaken by the pressure and fear, knows he cannot give up. Each thread he pulls unravels more of the dark web that Sarah and Jake have inadvertently become entangled in. The investigation turns into a lonely journey, where each step takes him deeper into an abyss of corruption and danger. The investigation not only uncovers the mysteries of the accident, but also explores the human cost of seeking the truth in a world where power and malice are often intertwined. With each discovery, James moves closer to an inevitable confrontation, a dramatic outcome that promises to change many lives, including his own. Judgment and redemption takes place in a gloomy courtroom, where the heavy silence is only occasionally interrupted by the rustle of papers or the restrained murmur of those present. At the center of it all is the trial that not only seeks to attribute responsibility for the catastrophic accident, but also serves as a stage for the desperate search for redemption for those involved. As the trial begins, Jake Carter, now physically recovered from his wounds but still bearing the emotional scars, sits next to his lawyer, his deep gaze wavering between despair and determination. Beside him, Sarah Johnson, whose inadvertent discovery triggered a series of tragic events, appears a shadow of her former self, visibly shaken but resilient. The prosecution presents a solid case, outlining how negligence and recklessness led to the disaster. They paint Jake as a desperate man, driving recklessly, putting the lives of everyone in the car at risk. However, the defense attorney weaves a different narrative, one of fear and flight from a deadly threat, driven by corruption and powerful enemies eager to silence Sarah. As the trial unfolds, witnesses are called, each adding layers to the complex tapestry of events that culminated on that fateful night. Detective James Alden, key to the defense, testifies about the findings of his investigation, revealing the manipulation of the car and the chase that preceded the accident. His revelations cast doubt on the simplicity of an accident caused solely by negligence, suggesting a much more sinister picture. As the jury deliberates, the tension in the courtroom is palpable. Family and friends of the accused, as well as onlookers, occupy every available seat, each holding their breath, waiting for the verdict that will decide the fate of Jake and Sarah. Outside the courtroom, the press swarms, each reporter eager to report the outcome of a case that has captured the public's attention. Finally, the verdict is announced. Not guilty, due to extraordinary circumstances and evidence of external manipulation. The courtroom erupts in mixed reactions, relief and disbelief competing in the charged air. Jake and Sarah, although legally free, know that the path to personal redemption has only just begun. In the aftermath of the trial, both face the world outside the courtroom, a world that still sees them in the shadow of what happened. Sarah resumes her career, now with a new purpose of using her legal skills to fight the corruption that almost destroyed her life. Jake, on the other hand, is dedicated to talking about road safety and the importance of facing and repairing mistakes. The journey of redemption is lonely and arduous. Jake visits schools and universities, telling his story, not as a hero, but as a man who narrowly survived his own failures and circumstances. Sarah, transformed by the ordeal, works tirelessly, becoming a central figure in cases exposing corruption. The judgment and redemption is not only the conclusion of a legal case, but also a profound reflection on human nature, on the capacity for failure and the incessant struggle for redemption. As the story closes, Jake and Sarah, transformed and rebuilt from their trials, look to the future with a new understanding of themselves and the world, aware that redemption is a path they choose every day. When finished our engaging journey with Jake and Sarah, we invite you to delve even deeper into this rich narrative full of twists and turns. What were the moments that impacted them the most? How would you react to the difficult choices the characters faced? Share your opinions, criticisms, and even your personal experiences in the comments. Let's strengthen our community with stories of challenge and redemption. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more exciting content, and interact with us. Your participation is vital and enriches our exchange of experiences. We look forward to reading what you have to say. Until our next meeting on the channel.